Hello, friends. It's so good to have you here, and happy Friday. Um, we have a really exciting Instagram Live today. Shaun T of Insanity and Twin Sanity, and just an overall amazing human, is joining us to talk about the incredible new podcast he has with parents.com. And Julia Dennison, who I see has logged on here. Hi, Julia. It's so good to see you. We are waiting for Shaun T to hop on. And while we wait for him, what their podcast is about is such an important topic to be talking about right now. It is celebrating diversity in families. He is the father of two boys. He and his
There he is. Shaun T has just signed on, and we were just starting to talk about your incredible podcast. My sweet friend, how are you, dear? It's so good to see you.
It's so good to see you too. How's my quality? Am I good?
Your lighting is phenomenal. Your hair looks great. Everything's on point.
Well,
Oh,
you are
it's so good to
phenomenal.
see you. I want to start off by saying the last time I saw you in person, we were sitting at my island. We were doing a shoot, and in between takes, which it takes a lot of time for cameras to get set up and lighting, I was about 6 months pregnant with my first, and you shared with me what your journey had been, your dream of being a father. And the day that I saw your twins posted on Instagram, I was just so incredibly happy for you. I mean, just share with us a little bit so that if people don't know the journey that you have gone through that you shared with me.
First of all, thank you. And I was actually going to come in here and talk about, I remember that day going to your house. We had such a good time. And I was like, I can't believe I
We
haven't seen you in
did.
so long. But you're right.
Yeah.
Obviously, my life has had an amazing transformation since then. And the journey of us having kids was it was a great journey in terms of just the emotion behind the emotional intelligence we've gained, within ourselves to be able to conquer something like that. And when I say conquer something like that, obviously, my husband and I didn't have the children, but it was just as emotionally draining over a course of 5 years, building relationships with surrogates and finding egg donors and doctors. And we basically go in and interrupt families' lives because we want to grow a family as a same-sex couple, and by way of adoption. So that's the thing that I think a lot of people say, why didn't you adopt? Why didn't you adopt? Well, it was our dream to have children that were biologically ours, and we weren't against adoption, but that's what we wanted, and that's what we spearheaded and went toward. And it's been, like I said, it was a crazy journey. We were so happy. We are still so happy. But let me tell you something about those terrible twos, which
Oh, I know.
I'm I, I'm like, I have a few questions for you. It Our boys, I mean, and they flip flop because they're twins. So one is like in a really good space for 2 weeks, and the other one is completely in a they just went to another world. But it's so cute.
I mean, wait until three-nager. I thought, okay, terrible twos. This is tough. Then there was three-nager, and I was like, this will kill me. And I think it's boys too. I think they just test you, and they have so much energy. And I see your videos, and it cracks me up because I can relate to you so much. Oh wait, Julia is chiming in here. She has a 4-year-old, and she's like, terrible fours are real as well. I can relate to that also. And you and Julia at parents.com have started this podcast to get real about parenting, and not just parenting, but diverse parenting. As a same sex couple, as an interracial couple, talk to me a little bit about what you have tackled on this podcast and the response that you've gotten.
Well, it's so fun because Julia Dennison and I, we kind of dive into these podcasts just being really open-minded when we talk to different types of families. And I think that the world of social media and just the world of trying to be perfect for other people's eyes, we really debunk the theory that there's anything such as a perfect family. Julia has a great way of getting like resources and education and just like that that really great knowledge behind like the psychology of kids and parenting and just that kind of thing. And I think I bring in the emotional standpoint where it allows people to feel free. Like, yeah, there's some things that are scientifically proven to work with kids or how you communicate with people. But then there's the other thing of like, we are all behind closed doors and all of our families are different. And there's no reason to act like you're living in a glass house. Like, you don't have to be like, oh, I'm so perfect. It's like what happens in your home, as long as you're doing the best that you can do, is great. I mean, we interview people from who were foster parents, foster kids, people who have raised transgender kids, helping them transition, just all, and we talk to kind of blended families, people who come in with kids and they have kids, and so now there's stepkids in the home. And we don't like to make our podcast about celebrities per se, but there are some celebrities on there, and you love it because they are normal, and there's no show. It's like parenting is not a show. It is a, how hard can you go? How deep can you dig? Kind of like, my motto is dig deeper. And Julia and I, we have a lot of fun, and she talks a lot about her daughter, Ezzy. I talk about my boys. I learn a lot from her as a co-host. And I think that's the other great thing with just the Parents magazine, parents.com in general, is they come with a really open mind to help people out there know, like, you are not alone. And in this podcast, we take you on a journey each and every week so that you can feel like you're not alone, and you can feel like you are actually succeeding.
And I think that a lot of people may be surprised by some of your honesty, because you are this fitness icon. Everybody knows Shaun T. You got 1 million+ followers. And they would think, hey, he must have it easy. He must be really, maybe he's got a ton of help. And I think quarantine really exposed you in getting real.
Yes.
Quarantine with toddlers is no joke. Quarantine with no help, toddlers, and working. Tell me about it.
So Scott and I are fortunate enough, before quarantine, we had 2 nannies, because we just wanted our kids to have good teaching, and plus, just really just having an extended family and the boys being more loved, and, the grandparents live next door. But when quarantine happened, we had to run our business. We had to pivot our business to change our business to a virtual business. And then our nannies couldn't show up because, COVID, you just didn't know what happened. So Scott and I and we keep it very real. We got in plenty of arguments because of exhaustion. It was like the first 4 months of pregnancy, first 4 months of birth again, and then on top of that, I think a lot of the pressure came from really wanting to relieve the other person, but knowing that you were under a lot of stress and a lot of deadlines and trying to split the day. And it took us about 6 weeks to really kind of find our flow. And then we started having, figuring out how to have date nights, how to, ask for help from our grandparents or from the kids' grandparents. And a lot of people are afraid to ask for help. They think they can do it alone, and they think that stress is not going to happen to them. And you have to embrace stress. And I think that's what we did. We did really well. And one of our babysitters just happened to come back. She quarantined. She came to Seattle. We also changed locations. We took a road trip with all of this, which was crazy. But I want to just tell parents out there, or even if you're a single parent, being frustrated, being stressed, having a lover's quarrel, it's normal. I mean, it's not like, obviously, I'm not saying go out there and fight. I'm just saying that if this did happen because you had a lot of stress, it's fine. And there's a lot of people out there that are like, well, you can't argue and you can't do this. Well, Julia and I also have had conversations about, well, it's actually okay for your kids to see you work through a problem. It's okay. And you see our kids, even if we're not arguing, at the time they were less than 2.5 years old, and they would say, Papa, Dada, stop talking. And we weren't even like arguing. They could just feel the energy. But it allowed us to have a conversation with them and say, Papa and Dada, I have to discuss something, and everything's not always fun. And so, but I mean, it's just real talk. It's real life. And on our podcast, We Are Family, we we really dive in and we interview our surrogates. You know, we talk about how it impeded on her family. And she actually told me about during quarantine, you know, with her family, and she has an extended family. And I think I'm saying what I'm trying to say to everyone who is listening is don't try to be perfect. Just try to make constant enhancements in your life and in your family and do the best that you can do.
That is all you can do some days. I mean, some days it's getting through minute to minute. Sometimes it's getting day by day, but they say the days are long, the years are short. It is very true. Can we talk a bit about your surrogate? Because she just seems unbelievable. I've been following, you know, obviously you updating and the relationship that you have with her, and what a gift. I mean, I don't think that there's really anything better that you can give than a couple like you, your dream.
Yeah, it's so a lot of people have a lot of questions about surrogates. You know, they're like, are they the, you know, birth mother as well? Maybe like the biological mother? Are they just a surrogate? And her surrogate was amazing. Number one, she had three kids of her own. Her husband had two kids prior to their marriage. So she had five kids, and then she agreed. She actually approached us wanting to have our children. So just that in general just made us feel like, oh my gosh, this woman is our angel. I mean, she came after 5 years of us trying and, you know, miscarriages and lots of stress, and she wanted to do that for us. In addition to that, her husband didn't even want to have, he didn't want her to be a surrogate, right? So that was the other thing that was a little bit stressful for her, but she really pursued and persevered and really wanted to do it for us. And through that time, I mean, our families really connected. Her kids know our boys. They, you know, they definitely consider them family. And then in addition, every year on their birthday, we make sure that time together. She comes, we keep the parties really small. And because we want her to have that time to remember that day and that time that she carried them for us. And so, and we text all the time, and, you know, sometimes we get to FaceTime, and, you know, she's a part of our family.
Was my video that paused. I'm so sorry, my Wi-Fi cut out. But when you said that she is basically a part of your family, I mean, she is. She's like, you know, she carried your children. What a gift, and amazing that her husband wasn't really on board. You know, we talk about the celebration of diversity in families. I mean, this is the ultimate diversity, being an interracial couple, a same-sex couple, a couple that has embraced a surrogate, and the way that people can learn to view this as something different. I think we're in these times where we all have to challenge ourselves. What advice would you give to people in sort of embracing the diversity and celebrating it?
Well, I think that's really, really good question. Because Julia and I on the podcast, and even like the pre-roll where we're talking, just having a good time with each other and post, you know, we talk about, you know, Julia, you know, she co-parents with, you know, her daughter's dad. And, you know, we go through our own challenges as a same-sex couple. And so I don't even want to say advice. My only thing is, just like fitness, just like working out, it's like, what are your goals? Like, if you have goals for what you want for your family, like, make it your goals. Talk to your spouse. Do some things that, and I think a lot of families and maybe couples and even single parents, like I always like to, my mom was a single parent, so I always like to put that out there. I think they forget that setting aside time to speak to each other if you are in a relationship and developing goals together, or a single parent, it's like, these are your goals. And when you set these small term goals, just, you know, it could be a week, it could be a day, like you said, minute by minute, second by second. When you do these things, it helps and enhances the communication. And the more you enhance the communication, the better you are in the long run. It's not to say that the challenging times aren't going to happen, but because you built the foundation of communication, it makes it much easier to get through those moments. So I hope that answers your question. That's really my advice to really helping people push forward.
And, you know, I think Julia can chime in here too, in her advice when it comes to co-parenting, when you've gone through a divorce and you still you're seeing your ex all the time, and not just seeing them, you have to have a positive relationship. She's saying, I think it's also important to give yourself a break if you can't do any better in that moment. And that's sort of what you're talking about when it comes to not having to be perfect. Something that I did a lot on Instagram was Instagram versus reality. When I post a picture of hair and makeup and on set, like I have it together, and I clearly do not. And so I give whatever scenario happened that day, because it's different every single day. There's something, so that people understand, hair and makeup or a fitness empire does not solve the challenges of parenting. And it does not solve some of the things that you're going to have to deal with. What about some advice for people who are in diverse families that don't feel the acceptance? What is some of those things they can do?
Yeah, so the thing that I kind of love about We Are Family, just in general, if you listen to each episode, you realize that families are different. And going back to the specific episode where we were talking to a foster parent, it's like this amazing guy brought in a whole bunch of young boys and just said, we are going to be family. And so a lot of people get it mixed up with blood being your family. And I get it. I'm not trying to like eliminate your family tree. But when you don't feel accepted by the people who you think should love you, it's okay to look for friends and people who accept you, or other, just people who accept you, or other same-sex diverse families, to build an extended family. It's really tough, even just for people who need to come out as gay, or even like, we talk a lot about my co-host Julia, even coming out to be like, I'm a co-parent. Like, some people look down upon that. They're like, and in many ways, some people look down upon it as like, why would you separate? Other people would be like, why wouldn't you want full custody? It's like all of these things. And so instead of trying to only look for support from people who may be ignorant to the fact that life isn't perfect, look for other people out there who just get you, who want real life, who want real talk, who want real, just real life situations. And so don't be afraid to build your family beyond the blood.
Oh, I love that. That should be on a t-shirt. Let's just like plaster that on for We Are Family, which someone was asking if you have a YouTube channel for We Are Family. And Julia reminded folks that you're on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, basically anywhere you can get a podcast. Okay, what surprised you the most about being father?
Surprised me the most? Oh, the terrible pain that, like, if your kid feels like, not when they get in trouble and they have to sit in timeout. I'm like, go ahead, like, that's on you. But just like two things. When they come up to you and just hug you and say, oh, I love you, Papa, and like kiss you on the knee or something, I'm like, are you really going to do this to me right now? Or when they're upset about something that's so foreign to your mind, because it could just be like, I'm upset right now. And I'm like, why? It could be over a car. But it's because like they actually feel that emotion. And I'm like, I wish I could help. But the thing that I've learned to do is allow them to feel emotions. And I actually learned this from Julia, actually. Like, if they're crying, just be like, it is totally okay to cry. Like, we can absolutely cry. You don't have to hide your emotions. However, what you did to get there, that's what we have to change, And so it's the pain of like the love that they have for you. I call it pain, but it's just like, it's just like, it like does something to your heart, And then teaching them is really fun. We have a really great way of teaching our boys, but it's really hard. There's the part that was like also surprising for me with kids. It's so hard to be like, are you really going to do that when I know not to do that?
And you see in their eyes that they're just testing you. It's like the fake cry, and then they're looking and they're like, are you going to come over? Like they know they're in trouble. They're so smart. I mean, really, a 4-year-old should run the world, because they can manipulate themselves into every situation to get whatever they want.
When I tell you, this is how I tricked my boys. I said, all right, everybody, we're going to fake cry today, right? When they were in a good mood, I was like, let's fake cry. And they would, and I was like, do it louder. And I said, Sandra, you go. Silas, you go. right? So they didn't know I was doing this, but I was like, I'm going to know what your fake cry is. And then now when they fake cry, I just go, that's a fake cry. I'm like, that's fake. And then one of them, Sander, laughs at me when I called him out. He laughs. And Silas is like, you are not going to do that. And then I have to tell him to stop being bossy. It's so funny. But I'm like, I'll call you out. Like, so that it's so silly. It's so fun at the same time.
Exactly. And that's what Julia said. Parenting, it's hard AF, but rewarding is AF. And then Pamela is saying having children is the hardest but best job in the world. And it is. That's the thing, is that it's like this weird emotion where you're constantly overwhelmed and stressed, but you're like exploding with love and happiness. So it's just this mind game that you can only relate to.
I got it. So a lot of people will probably get very mad that I say this, but this is why I really wanted to do the podcast, We Are Family, with Parents Magazine, and Julia, my co-host, is because on that podcast, I'm allowed to say, I don't want to be a parent today. I'm like, who can I give them back to? Let's do a time machine. And I'm like, cool, I want to get back on a plane and go on vacation whenever I want. I want to go sit at the beach. Like, a lot of parents be like, oh my God, why would you say that? I'm like, sometimes I want to be like, bye. But, I go to work, or we spend one night away and we wake up in the morning and you're like, oh my gosh, like I miss them so much. And then I ask myself, I'm like, why the hell do I miss them? They just like wore me out yesterday.
It's the biggest emotional roller coaster. And sometimes like I'll look at my husband, I'll be like, where are you going? And he's like, Florida. I'm just gonna get in the car and I'm just gonna drive to Florida. I was like, don't you leave me alone with these kids. Don't you leave me.
But that's why Scott and I literally started, he would get in quarantine, he would get Friday nights, he would leave and go sleep and stay out till like either 2 or 4 the next day, just like do his thing. And then I did Saturday night and the Sunday, because it's just really tough. And I actually have a friend in Europe, in the UK. Her and her husband started doing the same thing, which I was really happy about. She was like, you know what, we're going to try this. And one would take the kids on a Saturday morning and like spend the morning or mid-afternoon. And it's just like, it allows you to just regroup. But the funny thing is, when, like, if Scott comes back in, or if I come back in from my day off, it's like I've aged 18 years. Like,
here are the babies.
Right. My clothes are dirty. I haven't showered. I ain't even gonna say like the real, but I don't even know if I washed my hands from changing the last diaper. Like,
don't rub your eye, you'll get pink eye.
Right. I'm like, I'm not rubbing my eye. I'm like, where's my hand sanitizer? I got the strings that are in my pants. Like, one of them likes to pull the strings from my pants and my hoodie. I got strings all over the house. The back door's open. There's golf balls in the pool. I mean, anything you name, it's happened in that 8 hours alone with twins, or just a kid in general. But anyway, it's also really fun. Like, you look back and you're like, did I really just survive this day? Did I really survive this day?
And nobody's giving you a trophy. That's the thing. It's like, so you just feel like someone should walk up to you and give you a glass of wine and say, you are doing a great job. And that's what your spouse is supposed to do. And I know that Scott does that for you. Scott is so wonderful. Please tell him hello, by the way. Absolutely adore him. But, that's why there's such mad respect for single parents. I can't imagine, your mom was one of them, how hard it is to do it on your own. That piece of advice of giving your partner some time to regroup. We do that, so not in the switching off, and now I'm stealing that idea, but in just letting yourselves regroup to recharge. And Jorzy is saying, I have twins too. Any advice, Shaun T? That's something that is so your wheelhouse. Twins is a whole nother ball game. What's your advice to other twin parents?
Well, first of all, one of the things that Julia and I talk about on We Are Family is that all kids are different. So I could tell you exactly what works for my twins, and it might not work for yours. But the one thing that, and I think everyone knows this, is that there are certain things that have to happen every single day because of structure. And we started reading to our kids the day they came home from the hospital. The Garofalo was their first book. And so reading to them, never talking to them like babies. Like, we never talk to our kids like babies. We speak full sentences. They answer us in full sentences when it's time to go to bed at night. I mean, they have their ups and downs, but they sit down, they read a book, they do these things. Like, it's just like getting a structure. Even on the middle of the day, they're completely wild and crazy. You know, we just sandwich the day with just structure and like things that they know. Like, we have an alarm clock where they know they can't leave their room until they see the sun on the clock. They walk in our room most of the time and say, you know, good morning, and they say hello, and we have our morning together and we have our night together. Anything that happened in between there, good freaking luck, because I can't help you. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I think the only thing...
I blacked out.
Right. I think the only thing generally I can say when it comes to having twins is let them have their own personalities. Because... And we dressed them alike probably for the first year and a half-ish. And now one of them wants to pick out his clothes every single day. He's named, like, it could be a t-shirt and that's his soccer jersey. It could be like clog shoes and they're his running shoes. Like, you have to let them, and one doesn't care what he wears, or he only wants to wear one thing every single day. So we wash that shirt every single day. We let them have their personalities. And I think that's the most important thing with twins, because a lot of people are like, oh, they're twins, they must be exactly alike. And I'm like, nope. And we don't treat them exactly alike, except for rules.
Yeah, exactly. And discipline. Don't dress them in the same outfits. I love that idea because it's something that your knee jerk is. And one, Chloe Malas, hi, Chloe. Chloe's asking, does one parent handle nighttime when they wake up, or do you switch off your roles as far as putting them to bed? One or the other? Do you like divide and conquer?
Well, now we both do both now. Like, so I'll give a full little synopsis on our bedtime routine, especially from the time they were young to now. But I think what's more important, if you are in a household where you have two parents, before we go in their room, every single time we give each other a kiss, because we know it's going to be war. And at the end of the day, we give each other a high five. Every day, even if we had some sort of like argument or whatever, we kiss in the morning, high five at the end. Like, we have to be like, it's like, you know, if you're on a soccer team, you're like, good game, good game, good game, good game, good game, right? But we make a point to do it together. Now, in the middle of the night, there are times where like, it really comes down to who's tired and who can handle it. And if neither person can handle it, then you both go. That's the thing. And you can designate times, especially when they're young. We're like, hey, you're going to take to the 3 a.m. shift, and then I'll take from like 3 to 8, just so you know. But I think the other thing with parents in general, and I don't know, obviously, Lynn, I wasn't in your home, but I think a lot of times, and I'll say heterosexual couples for sure, if the mom is breastfeeding, but the dad has to go to work the next day, the dad doesn't get up and the mom does all the nighttime stuff. And I like to tell dads, I'm like, 3 days a week, you need to get up. Because when you actually leave the house, their mom is not on vacation. Like, she's still working. The mom that's, you know, breastfeeding and staying home. Or if it's vice versa, if you're a mom and you pump and you go to work and the dad is staying home, like, you guys have to go in there together. You have to experience that together, because, you know, it just becomes like an imbalance, and you get to really connect with the babies. I think a lot of times I've heard, before I had kids, I heard a lot of dads say, oh, I didn't connect with my baby for 3 months because, you know, they're always with their mom or they're breastfeeding. And I'm like, well, you can go in there and rub the baby's back just because it's 3 a.m. Like, you can come get a stool, give the baby a kiss, put your cheek up against their cheek while they're breastfeeding or while mom is feeding them, because the smell, you know, we always put them to bed with our shirts off. We wanted them to know our scent, you know. So it's these kind of things where I think as a same-sex couple, I can help the heterosexual male, you know, relationship out there. Is like, it's hard, but when you go to work, like, just leave a hidden camera on so you can like see how much work the person at home is doing. You know, I think we don't give it enough credit.
You would be getting a CEO salary if we were paying stay-at-home parents.
Yo,
it's
not to get political, but just like, I think teachers need to make $100,000
bajillions of dollars.
They're
bajillions.
Teachers opening after having kids. I'm like, I thought this before I had kids. I'm like, wait a minute. you want me to send like 25 of them things in a classroom, and now she has to capture their attention. She's giving he or she is giving a presentation every hour that I give, once a weekend. I'm like, teachers need to make more money. That's the one thing. Julia, we need to do a podcast on like, we need to find teachers out there, because I'm like, come on.
Please do, especially after all of us learned what it was like to homeschool or to just anything. The appreciation level through the roof. I mean, Christmas gifts this year are going to be out of control. Chloe, thanks for the question. And I love that you point out that if you don't give your partner that kind of help, that it really builds resentment and it really hurts relationships. I'm really curious if you and Scott ever have differing strategies with parenting and how you deal with that, if he's the good cop or bad cop, or if he disagrees with something that you're doing strategy-wise.
So we had a conversation before we had kids. I was like, listen, you might laugh, but I'm like, listen, I'm from the hood, and this is what we do, right? I keep it very real. But Scott and I always tease each other, like, he's from Seattle, like, it's a really, very complex. I'm from Jersey. I'm like, what you want me to do? I'm like, this is how we talk. So here's the thing. I'm definitely the disciplinarian, but Scott he realized that being really nice all the time doesn't always work. And so now, I swear, Lynn, the tables have flipped. Sometimes I'll be in another room and I'll hear Scott letting the kids have it. I'm like, damn, yo, like, that's you going harder than me. Like,
he's getting some Jersey in here.
I'll be out there scared. And I'm 42 years old. I'll be like, yo, don't come out here acting like that, because I'm going to go in the corner. I'm going to go in timeout on my own. Look, let me go find a spot.
Scott, can you come over to my house? I need some of that.
But I will say that, and keep it very real here, that in our house, like, so Scott's parents live right next door to us in Arizona. We're staying with them in Seattle. We're always with his parents. Some people are like, what? But yeah, we are. But here's the real. So when we first had the boys, I have 3 people who are like similar. Not that Scott is like his parents, but they made him, they raised him, and he has qualities, So you have these 3 people doing it in a way that communicates best with them. And then I'm over here, and I was like getting pissed. I'm like, well, that's not how I would do it. And my mom had a daycare center, and so we've had moments like that where I'm like, no. Like, I just don't think that's the way. And there's ways that they do things, and whatever. But one of the great things that, I don't know how much Scott does it, but I really pay a lot of attention to his dad in some points, because he has a doctorate, and basically human development. So that's a really good thing. And, and his mom, I also, they ran a company that taught teachers how to teach kids. So they do know. So, you got to give credit to the people with wisdom. But there's something about the hood, okay? There's something about the hood.
Street smart always wins out. Scott's actually on. He said he'll come over. And as long as he brings the wine, I'm DMing you my address, Scott. So one of the things that, and I love that people are chiming in, and Scott's saying we definitely talk about our different strategies. And that's so key, right? Just the communication. Yeah. Communication with your kids also really important. And when we talk about celebrating diversity, having those conversations with your children about the family, and how do you do that with your boys? Do you start at a young age? What advice do you have for other same-sex couples?
Yeah, so for same-sex couples, it's one of the things that we do. So our boys, because we've read to them since literally they were born, so story time at night now, we read like anywhere from 3 to 5 books. I know I'm rolling my eyes and I should be happy, but one of the things that our boys do is they literally extend story time, which is like bittersweet, because you're like, great, you're learning more, but I'm like, I'm tired, I'm trying to put you in bed. But one of the things that it progressed to is, they're like, tell me a story. So it started out with us telling them stories about volcanoes and magnifying glasses and parrots. Like, we create these stories where now we tell stories about Silas and Sander. I tell stories, sometimes I'll whisper to them like how they were born and Papa and Dada. And the other thing that we do is if we're bringing in other characters into the stories that we're telling them, we say sometimes that, like the Gruffalo, they're like, can you tell me a story about the Gruffalo? And we're like, oh my gosh, so Silas and Sander went into the deep dark wood and they knocked on the Gruffalo's door because he wanted to make orange juice. So we teach them how to make orange juice in the story, but then we'll say, but the Gruffalo's papa and dada told him he had to take a nap. But then if we're talking about the snake, we'll say the Gruffalo's mom and dad. But then if we're talking about the fox, we'll say the Gruffalo's mommy and mom. So we do these things so that they understand, one, that they don't have to feel different when they see cartoons and it's always like Daddy Pig and Mommy Pig on Peppa Pig or in Simon. And first of all, y'all got to be watching some of them cartoons that your kids watch, because Simon is bossy and Peppa Pig is snarky. Just saying. But anyway, so we tell them, we actually integrate diversity in the stories that we tell them. And I don't even think they don't think about it yet. I mean, they're 2.5, and I will say, they can have a full-on conversation with a 4.5, 5-year-old, an adult, but they've never asked, like, why does that person have a mommy and a dad? Not yet. And I don't think they will. They're probably gonna be like, listen, this is what I got,
I love that strategy, though. You're getting to their level of what they know to understand, and you're making diversity, and that can be a lesson, I think, for every parent, that you should be teaching your child about diversity from a young age and telling them stories about all different types of families. I'm taking that advice, Shaun T. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm seeing so many people chime in about your fitness programs also. I don't want to, I love that we all talk about parenting, but I think that also being a parent, you have to change everything about your life, that people feel like they are no longer themselves. They no longer have time to work out. They no longer have time to really take care of themselves because they're keeping humans alive. Minor detail. How did you, since this is your life, this is your business, continue to do this and inspire people in this way?
Yeah, so I'm like, listen, one thing that I've realized a long time ago, obviously being in health and fitness, but it is so easy to want to go to sleep when you have children. It's so easy to just pick up their food and snack on, the chicken nuggets, and they're not eating. And you think, a lot of people out there think like, well, I'm going to feed my kids broccoli and I'm going to feed them this. And I mean, some of y'all do that. And I'm like, come to my house, because tell me how you do it. Because I have one kid that is basically a vegetarian, and I have one kid that wants everything that I would preach against eating, But with that said is, you just have to make yourself a priority. You have to make your fitness, your nutrition, your mental health. It has to be a priority. And then obviously it's the relationships that you have with anyone who's helping you take care of the kids, be it your spouse, a babysitter, a parent, or whatever. Like, all of these things is the umbrella of health, if you will, when it comes to parenting. What your kids eating? What are you eating? How are you taking care of yourself physically, nutritionally, emotionally, and mentally, and your communication with the people around you? Now, is it going to be perfect? Absolutely not. But I can tell you right now, everyone can find 20 minutes a day, because the baby has to sleep, or the kid has to take a nap, and maybe they should be taking a nap, even if it's quiet time, even if you do a 15-minute workout a day, even if you start off eating something like one healthy meal a day and ramp it up. These are things, I think, that the dad bod that they call it, or I don't know what they call it, a mom bod, but listen, y'all had the baby most
You'll
of
be
you,
cut
so.
if you call it a mom bod.
Right, exactly. We call it dad bod. Dad bods are hot. You call it mom bod, they're like, bam. But when a mother has a child, they gain weight, and a lot of people gain weight. Like, there's some people who work out, and I know people who've worked out and they still gain weight. And so, just like I always like to say, pass yourself the baton. Like, continue to make yourself a priority. A lot of people might say, oh my God, my baby's the most important thing in the world. Well, we know that. We know you want to keep them alive and make them healthy and thrive. But guess what? If you're declining as they're, improving and thriving, what is that going to teach them, right? What if you're both moving up at the same time? Where's the balance? And so it's really important. Like I said, I have 5-minute workouts on my YouTube channel. I don't care if you do 5 minutes a day, do something and ramp it up. And so, you know, I like to provide those kind of resources. I think Julia and I just had another podcast I did. We should definitely talk about family and fitness, because that's a good idea. Thank you, Lynn. Look at you.
Yeah, actually, and Julia said, like, we talk about this. She and I have talked about this before. Put your oxygen mask on first. Like, 5 minutes is enough for you to regroup, and you're taking care of yourself. And when you gain weight in pregnancy, I gained 50 pounds with both of mine. You're gaining weight because you're nourishing your child. You are growing a human. Then when you have weight that stays on you, when you're nursing, I mean, I ate avocados my face off and everything that was just fatty so I could get that fatty milk. I mean, that was the whole point of it. And then I got myself together. I was like, okay, I've got to regroup. I've got to get that, you know, I finished nursing. I was like, it's time for mommy to get mommy back. Making that priority is so important. Pamela has advice for you about the food. She says, don't buy anything else. Only have the stuff, and eventually they'll be hungry enough to eat. Somebody told me that, but it didn't work for me.
It didn't work. It does. And let me tell you something. I appreciate that advice. But like I said, one of them, so here's the thing. What we do buy is always the healthier option, right? It's the gluten-free. It's even we have the cauliflower, chicken,
tater tots. Do you have the cauliflower tater tots?
We have the so we have healthier options. But I'm 42. I have a great mindset, but my kids like popsicles. You know, they like that stuff, and so I'm not going to be like, you can't have a pops. For me, I get the healthier popsicles, but it didn't work for me. But if it works for anybody else out there, good luck, because I haven't been able to do it.
Yeah, congratulations. And I have absolutely no idea how it works. I got a question from a viewer. Queen J06 is asking how you and Scott met.
Oh, so we met on a website, kind of like Tinder. And that's how we met. And I met him, and literally, nobody really believes it, but like 3 seconds, like 3 steps after I met him and we were walking, I'm like, I'm good. I was like, I'm good. You guys should Google Shaun T, Scott Blocker wedding on YouTube, because our wedding was about 3 steps, and it was, instead of just having a normal, like, I don't want to say a normal wedding, a traditional wedding, you know, like I actually choreographed and did an entire show that basically told the story of our love. It was a lot. But in 2 years, it'll be our 10-year anniversary, and people were even saying, like, can we do this again in 10 years? So I'm like, oh no, that might be kind of fun.
An excuse to go to Hawaii. Scott, did you know in 3 steps? I'm gonna see if he'll chime in comments if he was sure in 3 steps. Has he told you?
Oh yeah, he was sure. Trust and believe.
And now look at where you are. And back to the food. The one, and you should definitely do a podcast on this because so many people are chiming in on it. She says that my kid would have starved himself had we tried the strategy of not having other food in the house. And I can just attest, I was actually sorry, I paused there for a second. My Wi-Fi went out.
I can hear you.
When I was growing up, I ate only pasta with butter and Parmesan cheese. And I'm not kidding. I ate that until I was about 20 years old. And I'm fine. So whatever your kids are eating. Scott is saying 10 years. When is your 10 year?
2022. So we met in 2010. So we're coming up our 10-year anniversary of meeting. But our 10-year wedding anniversary is in 2 years. And Scott is like, I'm sure he's going to be like, really? You really want to do a 10-year like vow renewal? And I'm like, can you imagine that show? Hello?
I would tune in. Allie Brooks.
You're going to be there. What you talking about?
You bet, I gotta be. Allie Brooks has a quick question about working out. She says, and I've actually wondered this as well, for rest day, do you need to rest, or can you do a low impact workout like walking on the treadmill?
You can do a low impact workout. You can do anything you want. I think that's the thing I want to tell people out there. I'm going to tell you guys right now. Like, I know I created insanity, and I know most of y'all think I'm crazy, and I am, and it's fine. But at the end of the day, doing something is better than doing nothing. I'd rather you do 5 minutes of a low impact, do 1 minute squat, 1 minute of squats, 1 minute of a plank hold, grab some of your milk jugs, do 1 minute of bicep curls, 1 minute of overhead presses, 1 minute of jogging in place. You start your day off like that, you're gonna have energy, period. And I just know that everyone out there can do something. And there are a lot of people out there that's like, well, 5 minutes isn't enough. And so I want to tell you a story. Like, I think 7 or 8 years ago, I just one day would come home at like 10 p.m. when I lived in New York City. I would drop my bag and I would be like, Scott, film me doing this workout. And I would do a 5-minute workout. And I started that early, like May, I think around May. By the time I got to August, I read a comment in my comments on my Facebook. And there was a woman that said, these 5-minute videos have helped me lose 35 pounds.
That's amazing. 5-minute videos.
5-minute videos, but losing 35 pounds. And that's why I have them on my YouTube channel, because I know like some people just want to move and they don't know where to start, or a 30-minute exercise seems really daunting. And so, you just have to do something. 5 minutes is enough. Now, when you feel strong, what naturally happens is you're like, well, I want to do more. I want to do more. And then eventually you'll be doing a 15, 20, sometimes a 30-minute workout. But don't be afraid to start slowly. Like, why would you don't feel like because your friends are out there, they're taking Barry's boot camp, or they're doing, my workouts on Beachbody On Demand, that you're like, well, I'm just not going to do anything because they're so good. Like, be good at what you can do right now. And that's the question I have for anyone who's thinking about fitness, especially parents out there. What can you literally do right now at this moment? If you're not working and you get off this live, I promise that everyone can do 5 minutes, 1 minute of squats, 1 minute of jogging in place, 1 minute of a plank hold, 1 minute of, overhead presses, and 1 minute of crunches. You can do it. So If that's the best you can do, then do the best that you can do.
And a reminder that it's Friday, so it's donut and wine night. Can you also just talk about that real quick? Because it is not about being perfect. It is about having your days where you have your wine, you have your donuts, and you have your happiness.
Trust and believe, perfection is temporary, change is constant, happiness can be constant if you make it a priority. And so every Friday night, and I like to really tell people, so every Friday night, it was Scott's idea to start wine night on Friday nights during quarantine. He's like, everybody's home, nobody's got nothing to do, and you're crazy. He basically called me crazy. And I'm like, okay, cool. So we do wine nights every Friday night. It is 18 and over. When I tell you, I talk about, if you don't want to hear your fitness instructor talking about parenting, how to stay intimate in your marriage, because there's a lot of people out there who aren't having sex. And it's a really uncomfortable topic to have. It's so uncomfortable. And people are like, but me and Scott like bring these things up. Like, what happens when you're in a drought? And then, how do you kind of bring life together? What things can you introduce into your marriage to make, either just dating at home fun, your intimate life fun, how to get the kids out the way, how to talk about your past. And like, when I tell you, I talk about everything. I'm like, listen, it's one night where I'm talking about everything. I'm sitting around the table with my grown friends, and we're going to have a good time. So it's also the night, Lynn. It's also the one day a week where I lose the most followers. But I lose the most and I gain the most. But here's the thing.
Oh my God, I love it.
And I love it. Because here's the thing. If you can't take all of me, then I don't want you to have none of me. Like, this is it. Like, and what it has done, it's been really great for people who tune in to Wine Nights on Friday, because the things we talk about, like I brought my mom in, we talked about me coming out, and what went through her mind, and we talked about me losing my virginity. These are all, like, you can't have kids if you ain't having sex. So don't even try to come in here acting like we can't talk about this, because these are things that people want to talk about and they're afraid to talk about, and they hear people talk about it and they cover their ears because it's a problem in their relationship or it's something that they don't want to face. And so tune in Wine Nights on my Instagram Live. Tonight we're going to have donuts. I don't know if Scott's making me donuts. We're going to get some donuts. But we have wine, we have donuts, or sometimes I eat pizza or fries on there. People are like, oh my God, is he really eating that? I'm like, I have a heartbeat, I bleed, I'm a human.
What time is that, Shaun T?
Oh, so
What
wine
time do
ice
you do
is,
that?
uh, yeah, it's 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 8 o'clock Pacific Time. So it is definitely wine night after dark.
And 18 and over. Tell us where we can hear your podcast with Julia Dennison. We Are Family for parents.com. It is an incredible resource for so many parents.
Yeah, so first of all, you can follow Parents at Parents on Instagram. I love their page. And then you can also, you can check Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts. And we also post about it on both of our social channels for We Are Family. And I just want to let everyone out there know it takes a village. No one, there might be people out there, you look at celebrities and you might think like, oh, like their kid dresses so fabulous and so glamorous. Let me tell you something. They ain't doing all that alone. So if you're a person out there and you're struggling because you don't have help and you feel like you can do it alone, go get some people who support and love your kids. Make sure you get people who love your kids, that want the best for your kids, and invite them into your life. It's okay to not be able to do it alone. I can't, and I'm not going to. I'm like, listen, people are like, I literally do extra things and I work extra so I could like have a budget for, because our nannies and our babysitters are amazing. They love our kids. And that's the other thing that I want to say to people. And I know I'm going a little long, but
No, go. You're
I'm saying,
inspiring people.
I'm saying, just like we talked about paying teachers earlier, pay your babysitters, people. Like, unless they're a teenager and they're looking for extra money and they're work, great. When you have a skilled babysitter or nanny, someone who can cook, someone who can teach, someone who can take care of your kids and are loving them, pay them. Pay them, because it's not necessarily about the money, but pay them what they're worth so that they show up every day in a really good headspace and you have great morale around your house or wherever it is that they are. And I just wanted to say that to people. And also, I also want to say a lot of nannies are, people only get older nannies. I'll say older now. I'm of the 40-year-old variety, so I don't think we're old, and they have a lot of wisdom, and we've had nannies of all ages, and that's what I want to say. Don't be afraid of the college student or the person that's just out of college just because they're young and they don't have kids, because they have energy. Someone who's older who may have had kids already has wisdom, but they are all, if they love your children and they respect you, they're going to be so great for your household.
I have to say, before I let you go, I have so many people chiming in here about what an inspiration you are, how they want to be a part of your family. Trail of Happy note says, please adopt me. So as we celebrate diverse families, everyone wants to be a part of yours as well. And I just want to say what a joy it has been to spend the last hour just catching up with you, and also just hearing some of the great adventures that you're having with these two incredible boys. If you do not follow Shaun T, at Shaun T, it's just an incredible platform that you have, not just for fitness, but for family. And
but I didn't ask you about yours. Like, just give me, I know we're at the end, but what's a quick synopsis? How's your family doing? What's fun? What's crazy? What's enlightening?
Everything's crazy. I have a 4-year-old and a 1.5-year-old, and I've really been challenged with two boys. As you know, boys are just, I don't know the difference, but everyone looks and says, you're like, oh yeah, my little girl's coloring in the corner. My kids are tearing things off the walls. Like literally our entire living room had drapes ripped off the walls.
And there's nothing you can do.
Nothing. And so I wrote a piece about this for parents.com as well, about just giving yourself grace. And the number one thing I've learned as a parent is to give myself grace and forgiveness, that I can only do what I can do. And I do the best that I can. And as long as my children feel loved, that is all that matters.
And I know they do.
It is so good to see your face. I miss you.
You too, I know.
I hope soon that we will be back in the studio together, seeing each other in person and giving you a hug post-quarantine. And send my love to Scott. Give those babies a big old hug too. And
yes.
I'm
and do you ever, Are you back? Are you back in studio?
So we're not back in studio yet. So my show, we went off air in March because of the pandemic. We needed to keep the employees safe and at home, and a lot of our employees were helping out with the CNN side. So right now I am filling in for the morning show, doing reports for Morning Express, doing my Instagram lives, which I have been absolutely loving, being able to have these deep conversations. It's
Yeah,
something that we can't do in 2.5 minutes in television.
exactly. I love it.
And we never could have a conversation like this. One of the viewers of the Instagram Live, Diane, said, I want to say thank you to Shaun for his Dig Deeper challenge during this time. It saved me.
Uh,
And I think that that is the point, is that these kinds of platforms are a way for everyone to connect in ways that we've never been able to before. So
yeah.
it's making me happy.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you check out, I know you check out our podcast, but everybody check out our podcast, We're a Family. And Lynn, I was going to tell you, if you're back in studio, if you see Melissa Knowles and Robin Meade, to give them hugs, because, you know, y'all are my three girls. I'm letting everybody know. Now, I know people watch, you know, all these other news stations and they give you all this stuff. But let me tell you something. Lynn, Melissa Knowles, and Robin Meade are the people to watch when you want to watch the quote-unquote news. Like, you guys are all down to earth, like compassionate, real, fun. Y'all laugh. So if you, and I've gotten a lot of my friends to, are you still there?
You.
All right, yeah. I've gotten a lot of my friends to watch HLN because they're like, I'm so stressed watching the news. I'm like, watch HLN, y'all. Like, watch it. It's such a great, you guys are great. You guys are just
I
so
am
great.
so thankful that you say that, because we are not going to be screaming at each other. We are not going to have other people screaming at each other. We are just giving you the news, and that is and also we're going to try and give you some joy. There's going to be some good news. I also want to give a big thank you to Julia Dennison, who just chimed in and said, you are both two of my very favorite people. Julia, ditto, one of my favorite people as well. She said, this live has made my week. It has made my week also. Julia, your co-host there on We Are Family. And the podcast is something that y'all are changing so many important conversations happening in our country right now. God bless you, sweet friend. I will talk to you soon.
Thank you, my friend. Talk to you soon. Thank you for having me on. Bye.
Thanks for coming on. Bye.